Alright, everyone's Supreme Comedy over here. So we are going to be doing the Alteration review for the big scale Justice Gundam over here. So here we are. They finally dropped it. The first you can say a limited part, exclusive part that has the access to that one, the big scale alteration. I think the most benefit of this having a big scale is that non-conditional 20% subslot bonus you're looking at. So or even even if you put this on your main part and that's having a subslot, you still get a 20% non-conditional subslot bonus right there. So it's pretty good. But how did they actually went around building this guy? They know what they're doing in terms of building out the word tags. They gave it a high mobility. Gundams have a high firepower. You can say that is not the it's not the worst of the combo, which I think it is actually. The thing they did not actually drop with this guy, or in terms of word tag, they did not give it a close combat, which is I think one of the most crucial word tag you can be looking at in terms of what Justice overallness is. But them not dropping that was actually pretty smart. If they were to drop it immediately right now, they're gonna make that will be like a crisis right now, right? Because that will be like probably the best thing you want to be running in terms of either subslot or main part and all that good stuff over here. So overall stat on the Justice is actually fairly decent enough. I think in terms of the melee side of it, melee perspective, you're looking somewhere between rank 1 to 6 throughout all the parts over here. So that looks really good on paper, but how does it actually function into like whatever the highest stat part we have in game? I did actually go out of my way to alterate most of these parts already, and I can just give you guys one quick example over here. So let's say I got the arm, the Excel sheet should have been somewhere along the right hand side already. So you know how I usually say if you don't pull the arm, you can definitely do some subslot. So what we're gonna do right here, we're gonna do a quick demonstration for you guys right here. So what I have over here is the Gundam double quanta, the double shield quanta arm over here. So ideally, if let's say I did not put a second copy of the arm, what we can be doing, right? We can be subslotting ourselves the Justice arm, for example, because we are getting a non-conditional 20%, the scale difference right there. And then we share one word tag, so that's why that's 10%, 20, and then 30.5%. So it's literally like the same thing, right? This one does slightly have a little bit of a higher melee attack, so presumably when we do have this, or when I do have this, let's say level 99 something like subslot, that could have been better. But the thing you want to be looking at so far is the defense. This one is only 10,000, and then this one is a little bit better. So even if we do subslot right here, bam. I think, are we a little bit lower or are we a little bit higher? I'm at 45 right there. If I were to subslot the original arm, we should be looking at a 46. So that's a prime example showing you guys that even with the big scale, you still cannot beat just subslot your own self. But that situation does depends on case to case right there. But that is just a quick example just to show you guys that although this is a big scale alteration, but it does not mean that it's like definitively the best thing in the world right here. But you know, let's start out with Justice right here. I should have started with the hot scramble, but it's whatever. I guess the big scale is probably the most important thing you want to be looking at. In terms of the head, in terms of the stat wise over here, you're looking at 5,100. So that's a pretty respectable number with the raw stats and some, you know, melee defensives attached on right there. So when the 3.1 update actually changed, I will modify hugely on my numbers over here, because currently the change here I'm using is going to be that 30% change here. So depending on what they're going to be dropping in terms of the percentage of that 4-star gear, maybe 35% or maybe 40%, anything with like a high defensive value number, that would translate extremely well pairing that up to like your watery raw attack stat already. So do expect some big changes you know, over the course of the 3.1 update. I do expect unit that has extremely high defense to begin with. I think they will definitely benefit the most. So I do expect that to, you know, come to life eventually. But is it how good is head, right? Presumably, because when we do this, when I do these alteration video, like assuming that a lot of people have limited access to, let's say this over here, limited access to the alteration tools over here, we want to see, all right, of all the setup here, what is going to be the best part to be summoning, or what is the best part if you, let's say you pull everything. All right, what should I go for, right? I think probably the easiest way to look at this is just probably the the leg, we always want to look for the highest stuff in the game. So 40% trait, that is going to be it. This one is definitely going to be one you want to be alterating when you do pull, let's say the leg, for example. That is going to be like a top choice right at the back. Those 40% trait, they don't play around, right? In terms of the head wise over here, like I said again, 5,100 is a pretty respectable number. Word tag wise, Gundam tag, like I said again, does not really fit into the overall build of like a melee build, but which like this one again, because this one is a big scale, so you can be a little bit more. You can say in terms of subslot wise, you can play a little bit around better wise if you can do that. So for the head, ideally, if you're able to fight a extremely high stat head, let's say, unfortunately it has Gundam type, you can still subslot this one because you will still get a non-conditional 20% plus, let's say, one matching word tag. So ideally, maybe your head part has close combat and Gundam type, then you can definitely subslot it, no problem. Even if you don't find like a pairing, let's say pairing word tag wise, I guess 20% is still better than the rest of the subslot because most of them probably start at 5%, 10%, etc., right? So this one can be good, In terms of the overall portrait right here, this is a pretty nifty one. This is actually pretty good. This one over here, so with power attribute, initial charge boosted by 20%, so this is definitely a good part. This for anyone who's liking those initial boosting. So if anyone is wondering, oh, how can you execute your EX skill right off immediately, like without, like how? So these are the portrait you want to be using right there. In terms of the second portrait, power attribute again, EX skill power boosted by 35%. So that's actually pretty good. So in most case scenario, like if you want to play around with the portrait wise over here, you can definitely subslot this into like a melee build, no problem. Because the Gundam type over here actually does work into a melee or a shooter build as well. So you can ideally, but I would say not to, just because of the overall stat for the shooting side is kind of slacking, right? Even with the change here, you're only looking at 7,590. So maybe if you do subslot, I think most what you're gonna do at most is probably bring down what is the overall value of it. So ideally, you still want to subslot the same head, right? Or at least find something that if this one does have a better shooting stat, I'll definitely say go for that. But this one is just too low. I would probably even go with like the others, the standard big scale, like Wing Gundam. I think that would probably be a better solution than this guy over here. But in terms for a melee, it's actually good. This one I would say is good. There's not gonna be any discrepancy of like, all right, this one you cannot use it for a shooter. You can only use it for a melee. This one does actually work well because of this only specific to like a EXQ power right there. So not bad overall. All right, but in terms of I feel like they did an extremely good job with the chest over here. Let me look at something over here. I want to see. Oh yeah. You know what else is good as the overall whole of the Justice Gundam over here? Look at that extremely high physical resistance over here. So if anyone does care about the meta game for like the arena, for example, if you guys are into arena, there are certain times when they bring up let's say physical resistant arena mode. Justice Gundam overall is actually the best candidate to be looking at because you're looking at some ridiculous high physical defense, physical resistance there. So I guess that is something I kind of forgot to mention right there. So in terms of the chest wise over here, it's actually pretty decent in terms of like your melee base over here. But I would say if you guys do have Blazing Gundam for like a while ago, I feel like I would definitely say that one is a lot more better. Just because that one does come with a 40% trade, you got some good stats and all that shenanigans over here. This one over here is gonna be more for like a supporting type role, big scale. I treat them more for like a supporting role prior to having like a big scale like we do or in terms of like a Gundam Battle Festival part. This one does not yield the highest stat, for example, for like a melee, but it definitely does work. Word type wise, high mobility and Gundam type, so I think the best case scenario is if you're able to find parts that has word type combo that goes by Gundam type close combat or high mobility close combat, then you can definitely work a good combo right there. Because this build, if you guys are using the overall Justice big scale Justice, I think what is actually missing is just a good pair of some melee war tags, like maybe close combat. They have high firepower already here, but ideally you want pro tag. If you are able to fix up a pro tag into this build, I think that would definitely be good. So maybe high mobility pro tag. I think there are parts like that, so definitely do look over them if you really do want to take advantage of that. 30% subslot bonus and all that with the big skill wise over here. But other than that, I don't really have too much to talk about. In terms of the EX skill wise, they did a pretty good job with this shooting based EX skill over here. This is definitely not going to be something you're going to be running on a melee build, obviously. But they did a good job with overall animation. I am satisfied that they did not just kind of give us like a new alternative attribute units and alright, that's it. No new animation, just purely stat. Do give them props for dropping a meteor unit right there. In terms of the overall EX skill, it's not gonna hit multiple enemy. That is one thing I can just kind of say. It's more of like you can at least get 2 enemy if the first part of the EX skill is able to, let's say, finish up your enemy. And then after that, the meteors, you're gonna dash in with your meteor, gonna hit your enemy with some melee slashes with your meteor arm, and then you're gonna continue with some missile spamming. So overall, it's an okay-ish EX skill, but there are some high chances you just kind of miss because of the range that charging in does have a pretty short range, and if your opponent is not anywhere nearby, chances are you would just miss it. So that is that. In terms of would you alterate this one, I would say it depends, because this one does have an EX skill over here. So I would say if you really want the stat, you can kind of go for it. But this one, what you need to do, you're gonna have to find some subslot that has some good portrait. That is going to be the only advice I will give you right there. In terms of Reddit alternating or not, it does really depends on what you have in your box already. If you guys have, let's say Blazing Gundam already, I'm like, don't even bother doing this one over here, because this one tag wise is not the most optimal. Even just look at it right now, you're gonna really rely on some specific word tag combo in order to make this shine. So I think that's the effort that a lot of people won't probably put into, or not even have the parts to begin with. So pretty bad overall. But I think the only thing we're looking at right here, the big money right here, is gonna be preparing for that maybe in the near future, a physical resistant arena right there. So that is gonna be purely for some arena fans out there that are tryhards and those, like me personally. So that is that. Moving on to the arm over here, I thought initially they would actually cut the CX over here and actually drop this as like a portrait, but they did not do that. But in terms of the arm, this arm over here, you wanted the higher melee attack stat over here, 11,762. So this one is good. That decent right here. So ideally, what you want to use for this arm, like I said again, you can either put this on a main slot or a sub slot, however you need it. I'll say with the stat this one is carrying, this one is definitely gonna be like a main, the main slot part over there. And what you want to do with your sub slot, obviously, please try to find something that has a portrait. You never want to run into a situation where both your main slot and your sub slot has the EX skill, and then you're just gonna be wasting you're gonna be wasting 2 portrait slot already, and then you just gonna come ask me, for example, like, how come I'm not doing enough damage? Is my stat not high enough? And then I'll probably tell you guys, maybe can you try to find a part that has a good portrait if possible? Yeah, so that's probably gonna be the answer I'm gonna give you guys if someone did ask a question like that. So please make sure you're trying to subslot something that has a portrait if, for example, you don't have any. So this one is gonna be a pretty good foundation wise over here. But like I said again, the word tag, you're gonna have to find specific part that kind of match what we're looking for over here. So you're gonna need subslot parts that has option of like high mobility, pro tag with close combat. So that's gonna be a something you need to look for right there. In terms of Gundam type, probably you gotta look for some. In terms of Gundam type, maybe close combat and then Gundam type. I think that is probably the high ability of a part you can kind of find your arsenal right there. But please just make sure it has a portrait. Other than that, I think this one is definitely going to be a good arm to just kind of alterate. because the stat staking on this one is gonna help you tremendously on a melee build. So this one I will recommend this one, despite the fact this one does have an EXO, which I don't like, but can't do much about that right there, right? In terms of Lego here, the leg right here is definitely going to be the money shot right here. This is actually the part you want to be looking for, right? This one is going to be another 40% trade. So anyone who chase, I believe, the Lifelines Heavens is like, oh no, that one's a 40% trade and this one is a 40% trade. But I would say they both the Lifelines and this one does have their own of a disadvantage. Because I believe the lifelines actually wants you to be using like a lance category or melee weapon, while this one wants you to be using a high firepower. So I think both of them does have their own unique disappointing factor. This one having a locking you to only high firepower does limit you extremely how you can build this unit over here. Just because of the fact that this unit does not have too much of, let's say, high firepower. This fortunately do have it, so that's good. For me personally, what I want about this leg over here, I actually did want to subslot myself to double quanta leg, because that one actually shares high mobility and does have close combat, which is something I can definitely sabotage out of right there. So ideally, if the best case scenario, what you want to be doing with all the justice part, not mentioning it, is a subslot the original version, the S type of it, because if you subslot it both parts together, the same naming, you get a non-conditional 55% despite whatever word tag you're looking at. So ideally, if you guys do have the Justice like the original one, that this is definitely the one you want to be subslotting, because for one, this one does have a part rate to begin with, a 40% part rate, so you don't have to worry about any of like, all right, what are we gonna be, how am I going to get some good part rate, right? So this one is gonna be probably the only one I would say that you can reliably use the original Justice for subslot. I don't actually have the original Justice subslotted or let's say alterated, so unfortunately I cannot really bring up what kind of ditch you'll be looking at. So when they actually do drop, let's say the Justice Gundam, when they actually load into, let's say, the simulator, I'll just kind of check what kind of number we're looking at. Just because I did check what are the stats for the original Justice, and it's not too high, so I'm not sure how much of a big difference with the low amount of stats can like adding up for that 50.5%, right? I think overall it's still going to be better than subslotting all your any other parts, because 50% is always going to outweigh any of your 40 and 30% subslot bonus. So that is definitely something you can be looking for. But this is like you want to be going for currently. It's going to be currently placed at rank number 1, so that's good. So this one is definitely gonna age a little bit better, for my opinion, just because they did slap in a high firepower, so not bad overall. In terms of the backpack, it's just gonna be your regular Falcon Zero up here, so not gonna be anything too fancy. Per usual, I did kind of miss out what are the physical resistance. I think they are pretty high for every part. Yep. Wow, 3,133. This one is good. Definitely gonna be a part you want to be using once that what is it? Once that physical resistance mode drops, so not bad. Just looking at all these parts right here. In terms of the backpack, you are looking at rank 3. Okay, not bad. This one does have a little bit of a better word tag wise over here in terms of comboing, high mobility and high firepower. I feel like for me personally, that's why when I rated this, I'm like just looking at what we're looking at so far in terms of like the meta build. I say Gundam type is just like, come on. Like even with high firepower, you can just kind of manage it alright. But close combat, you're looking at a completely dead tray or dead word tag, right? Just where you've been subslot. It's gonna be hard. I think that's the only thing I can say. It's gonna be really hard to make that good of a unit. With the kind of like word tag they're setting us with over here. So this one is gonna be that Falcon 00 over here. So it's not gonna be anything too groundbreaking over here. That's gonna raise your health recovery of your squad by 58%, but the melee attack increase is gonna be slightly slandered over here, only down to 29%. It's still something. The switch will bump it probably up to like a 39%, but it is what it is over here. So I think everyone does look at that health recovery as a pretty good nifty additional effects that you can kind of take into consideration right there as well. So not bad in terms of the backpack. In terms of the backpack, I will give you guys the say of like whether altering or not. I feel the stat, like everything on this one over here, does have extremely good tag wise or stat wise, so you can reliably alter any of these for no problem. But I think the main problem with the part that has the EX skill, you must find a part that has some good portrait wise, or else you're just gonna be wasting that portrait and it's just gonna be not good overall. So moving on to the shield, I think the shield is pretty decent as well. High mobility and high firepower again. In terms of the portrait wise over here, this is going to be another one of those situations whether you like the enemy shooting power reduction by 30%, like whether or not you like these kind of reduction type EX or portrait over here. Me personally, I don't really run them too often or even have like a good decently build for this. But in terms of the second portrait, it's too restrictive, man. Like I just kind of wish they would give us like maybe another condition in terms of this, like instead of just locking to like a back part only. I think that is just a little bit too much on this over here. So I'll probably say this one is not like the best of the best parts to be looking at. But ideally, you know, because this one is a big scale, you can say you can do some good subslotting for people. So that is probably the only thing you want to be looking at, just because it's a 1:1 scale. So even if you do some, even if you do subslot, maybe to a better shoe that has portrait, I think that's probably reasonable to be saying. So overall, in terms of the justice, I think the overall, like, what are we looking at? There's multiple functions of what this guy can actually perform. I think one, when I look at the whatever the physical resistance, it just reminds me of like, all right, this one is definitely gonna be good for arena later down the road, but arena is not something that everyone takes serious into. So I'm just saying that that is something to consider there as well. Up next, this one is a big scale, so ideally, you know, just ultimately that will serve a pretty good bonus just to, let's say, any part you don't pull a dupe, for example. I think this will definitely slice right into whatever those vortex specifically. You gotta be looking out for, you know, high mobility, Gundam type, and high firepower. I think those are the three vortex you want to be affiliating, and just trying to see if you can just kind of get one of it, and then the other one is a better portrait like pro tag, close combat. I think those are the ones you want to be trying to see if you can fit into it. If you can, that is going to be great. That will definitely help you just gain better stat overall. So you know, with parts that you want to alterate immediately, just when you do pull, let's say, in a good scenario, you pull everything. I would say the leg is definitely for sure the first part you want to be alterating. Maybe the arm next, because it does have some extremely high, you know, melee attack stats, so you can definitely do some good subslotting, you know, potentially. All the other one, it really depends on you guys. Like in terms of the head, we do have a few actually that does carry out those initial charge thing. So I'm not gonna say, oh, that is like, oh, the one you want to you have to have, for example. I think all the other ones, like the EX skill based in terms of the torso and then backpack, those is just more of like a situational thing right there as well. So with that being said, that should be pretty much it just with this justice right here. I'll do another separate video just going over the House Scrabble Gundam as well. So with that being said, that should be pretty much it, and then I'll catch you guys all on the next one.